Hey, welcome back to part 3 of my message for this week. The message, I call it the position of power. In part 3, we're going to be looking at 1 Kings 7, verses 20 through 22, and I will be speaking on the topic of Jachin and Boaz. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I think that this part is pretty powerful and is pretty cool as well. So I hope you stick around, I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you back for part 4. Bye. So next, I want to flip to 1 Kings 7, verses 20 through 22. I'll go ahead and read it real quick. It says, "On the capitals of both pillars," so on the tops of both pillars, "above the bowl-shaped part, next to the network, were 200 pomegranates in rows all around. He erected the pillars at the portico of the temple. The pillar to the south he named Jachin, and to the one to the north he named Boaz. The capitals on top were in the shape of lilies, and so the work on the pillars was completed." So, if you guys Google again, now I had to Google this because I didn't know what Jachin and Boaz meant or what they represented. So I had to Google it. I did myself some little research. College has not taught me nothing. But anyway, so I had to look this up. I didn't know what Jachin and Boaz was. I couldn't really get a picture of it in my mind. But if you Google Jachin and Boaz and go to images, then you'll see that there are these two giant pillars, right? The pillars that this was talking about, and then the capital that was on top was all the pomegranates and the things in the shapes of the lilies next to the bowl part. That's literally what it says, the bowl-shaped part, verse 20. Very descriptive, but they knew what it was talking about. Anyway, this temple that's talked about here is after King David has died, and it's once King Solomon has taken over the throne, taken over the heir, and if you guys can remember, David wasn't allowed to build the temple, but Solomon was. So David saved up all the money, saved up all the resources, so that as soon as Solomon came into power, he could build the temple. So at the very end of the temple, at the portico to the temple, which the portico is like the entrance, they wanted to have these two pillars raised up. So they said to the south it was named Jachin, and to the north it was named Boaz. Now, these names, while scholars debate whether the accuracy of it or not, Jachin is supposed to be an ode to King Solomon, and Boaz is supposed to be an ode to King David. Now, some scholars argue whether or not King David should have even been allowed to be at the temple and been honored in that way, to have a pillar standing in front of the temple. But that's besides the point. That's beside the point. So Jachin, if you look it up, literally it means Yah establishes. So Yahweh, is the Hebrew word for God, like the Father God. Now, Yahweh was a very sacred word, to the Israelites and to everybody who was Jewish. So you didn't say Yahweh. Yahweh was a very, it was too holy for everyday use. They wouldn't go into church and sing a song, just Yahweh. No, it's not going to happen. By the way, sorry for the voice. I can't sing, I know. But they wouldn't go to church or go to the synagogues and sing this. They wouldn't speak it. It was only spoken on very, very select occasions. And so what they did was they shortened it to Yah. So they could be like, what what's up, God? It's like if we were to call Jesus J-Dog. We'd be like, what's up, J-Dog? How you doing, man? But anyway, that's way beside the point and not accurate at all. But that's kind of how you can think about it. So Yah was the way that they could address God, but not have it be Yahweh. So this pillar means Yah establishes, and it's supposed to represent King Solomon as well, because King Solomon is the one who built the temple. Now, if we look to Boaz, it's supposed to be an ode to King David, and Boaz literally means strengthen. So, this pillar, we have a pillar of strength, and we have a pillar of establishment, and it's standing in front of God's holy house. So, we can look at this, and remember, the pomegranates are built and are placed on top of these pillars. So, I want to look at the placement. I want to look at the position that the pomegranates are in again. Because we can think of ourselves as the pomegranates in these places. We are the ones who are being held up by God's establishments. And now, by God's establishments, I don't necessarily mean the church building that you go to. I don't necessarily mean the house that you're living in. God can establish things in your life. Maybe He establishes you with wisdom. Maybe He's established you with a position. Maybe He's established you with education. Maybe He's established you with a job. I don't know what God has established you with, but you are standing on top of what God has established for you. That's what that's saying. The pomegranates are built on top and are being held up by Yah's establishment. We should take strength and knowledge and comfort in the fact that God provides and establishes everything for us, and we're being held up by the things that He does for us so that we can then make an impact on this earth. But we wouldn't be able to be held up if we didn't turn to God. So if the pomegranates were just sitting there by themselves, they wouldn't just float up in the middle of the air. They would fall down to the ground. So if you're not standing up on these pillars, if you're not looking down to Yah's establishments and thanking Him for being the platform that you can stand on top of, then you are getting the full access to the power that God has for you. Now, if we look at the second pillar, if we look at the pillar of strength, oh man, this is powerful. Standing on the pillar of strength. Standing on what God has already made, established for you, and what God has already given you the strength to do, and the strength that the enemies have already lost the battle, and you have already gained the victory. You just have to have faith in the strength of God. You're being held up by what God establishes, but then you need to also have strength. You need to look to God's strength, because remember, and I think that this is very important, and how this could be related to King David, because a lot of scholars think that Boaz and David, or David, is what the Hebrews would call it, that Boaz and David could not be related. A lot of scholars have a hard time drawing the comparison between the two, but this is what it is. Even though, and now, I can't say that this is what it is, because nothing is what it is. This is what I get from it. This is what my mind comes to. This is what God has told me is the pillar of strength, the Boaz, right? David, even though he's messed up, even though he's not perfect, even though he's done things that are a disgrace to God, even though that he's killed people and he's slept with other men's wives and he's killed men to sleep with their wives, and regardless of what he has done, he always would turn back to God's strength. And David was a strong man as well, but he would always turn to God's strength. So if we turn to Yahweh's establishment, endurance, and we turn to Yahweh's strength. The things that hold us up, that put us on the platform to do God's work in his holy temple, in his holy land. That's what we need to be looking